Just like I told you, we're back on stage with Defiance. Nathan Richardson, the executive producer, is joining me. Nathan, welcome to the stage.
Thank you for having me.
We're glad to have you here. And Defiance is an MMO and a sci-fi show and something this really intriguing, innovative sort of media project that came out a few months ago, debuted.
Yeah.
And how's it been going? This cool experiment you guys have undertaken.
I mean, it's great. It's more than like a little experiment. It started 5 years ago, where sci-fi was thinking like, what should they do next with television shows, and they started thinking about transmedia, and they started talking to us. And what essentially happens is you start going over current intellectual property that sci-fi already has.
Yeah.
It's like, can we use some of this? You know, Sharktopus, not so much. So it ends up actually creating Defiance back then, which is something intentionally built so it fits into this transmedia experience. So you can actually do storytelling both inside of a game and in a TV show and other mediums as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it ended up with creating something from scratch for both of us, and it's fully a joint venture. So like neither of us are licensing each other. It's quite heavily in there. And of course, what's happening now is that we launched 2 weeks before the show, and during the show airings, we kind of do crossover events. So like the storytelling goes back and forth between us.
Uh-huh.
So we have events on the game side, and then the show takes over, and then it hands them back again. So it's great. It's mildly insane trying to take it on.
It seems like there's a lot of coordination involved.
Yeah.
And now the game itself is an MMO as well, which also adds a whole dimension onto your ambition.
I mean, it's open world and third-person shooter, and it has MMO aspects. I mean, it's a league of its own, essentially. Yeah. And I mean, I think that what we got right is that we're fun. But people that, for example, are coming in and thinking about MMOs, they will not find those deep, large gaming systems, because the thing is that what we look more towards, and we're actually closer to the shooter than the MMO, but we have those MMO systems in place. So if you're going in there looking for like a full-fledged MMO, this is not the game you're looking for.
But you will, in your third-person shooter, get these experiences where you and 20, 30 other players are combining to take down big enemies.
Yeah, and that's kind of like where we have our main differentiated, and that is essentially that you can very easily group up with other people and take on either player versus environment, where you're taking on gigantic bosses, artful stuff like that, dynamic events. We're joining up with 20, 30, 40, 50 people, but you also have it player versus player. So there you can actually go and you're taking over territory essentially. And that's 50, 60, 70, 100. Yeah.
Now the MMO launched and players could jump in. It takes place roughly in the Bay Area.
Yes.
Of course, in Defiance's version of a post-alien assimilation ravaged world. Players could start off playing as human, and I also believe Arathian, but now we're seeing a Castathan in action.
Yes, we are now adding in the first DLC a new playable species. And he's actually holding that badass charge blade, which is part of the show. You see it on the show. Usually has a dagger, but he has it also as a sword, and those are also being introduced. We're also, introducing 3 new game modes just in this DLC. And kind of what we're doing is that we have an aggressive schedule of DLCs. Okay. So it's there's 5 DLCs between Season 1 and Season 2. And the thing is that what our aspect of doing DLCs is that half of it is available for everybody. So the game modes are available for everybody and stuff like that.
Okay.
But the DLCs are essentially giving you, of course, unique outfits, stuff like that, but also abilities essentially. So you get a good deal on a DLC, but you can always play with your friends. We don't segregate the players. So even though I would buy the DLC and you wouldn't, we could still play everything together. So
okay.
Yeah.
So it's a way to continue, preserve that unity of your player base while giving people options to customize and experience new things.
So, half of the DLC, or actually more, is free, and the rest is actually bought.
So what we're seeing right now is a Volge swarm. The Volge in the show, of course, really sinister kind of mercenary race that are built for one thing.
Yeah, war.
And that thing is killing other things.
Yes.
But is this one of the new modes we're going to be seeing in DLC, or is this sort of a...
Well, yes. It's also that we are introducing the Volge more into the game, and you have sieges, which are essentially where you have a siege of a small city or something like that, or an area of interest, and there you're actually defending the place from the siege. So you have both dark matter that you're seeing here, but you also have Volge in there as well. And the other game modes are actually dueling. Everybody wanted to do dueling, so we did dueling. But there's also battle arenas, which is more like like a group of people actually taking on waves of enemies. I mean, it's really easy to expand on game modes because it is just an open world, and we have lots of space, and we have lots of easy functionality that we can add to actually make the game deeper quite easily.
And with the Defiance fictional world, and with the the whole, you got a solar system's worth of different alien species that came and terraformed the Earth. You guys have this just immense creative leeway to try to bring new things into this world, providing you do it in tandem with the show.
Yes. Well, there's one thing that we set out with in the beginning is that finding the world that we want to be in, which ended up being Defiance, it also had the main goal of giving both of us freedom. We didn't want to get like restricted like you had with if we were licensees, right?
Yep.
So intentionally, the world, exactly like you said, like we have plenty of species, we have plenty of territory, and that's, I mean, even part of the fact that the game is in San Francisco and the show is in St. Louis, is actually giving us freedom from each other, so we can actually tell our different stories that fit for our different mediums and aren't too much like relying on each other. What we did instead is that we have some tentpoles there, which essentially are like we decided beforehand. These are the crossover events, and these are the areas that we synchronize.
Okay.
But other than that, we have very much freedom. But that being said, also is that if you play Defiance and you watch the show, you'll see so many similarities. I mean, the art teams are going back and forth with everything. So yeah.
And you're getting complementary information. You find out more about the different races' history and about the different species of aliens that pop up, and then you see them in the show or you see them in the game. It just sort of all feeds into the same universe.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one thing that we didn't want to do is that you don't have to watch the show to play the game, and you don't have to play the game to watch the show. It's an additive experience. Is that you get deeper into it if you want to. But I mean, they totally stand separately on itself.
And now the show, and of course the game and the show have to stand on their own two legs in terms of their successes.
Yes.
The show has been renewed for a second season with Sci-Fi, which is great. Yeah. And you guys bring out a whole new raft of DLC and presumably some more in the works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's what's happening there is that, and this is kind of the more interesting part, is that what's happening now with the events that we have together with Season 1 and during Season 1 of the show, they're of course pretty much pre-planned, because I mean it's a TV show. We can't change that much.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a player of the game actually is on a wanted poster in the television show right now. It's just a green screen that we filled out. But the thing is that, I mean, there's more like that we're gonna do. And here comes the interesting part, which is that between Season 1 and Season 2, the game is actually progressing the timeline and the story of the world. So what happens and what the players do between Season 1 and Season 2, that happens in the show.
That's gonna lead into the events that's kicked off Season 2.
And also on top of that, of course, the tie-ins and crossovers in Season 2 between game and show are going to be even deeper. I mean, we're going to go further than the poster. I mean, we're going to have...
Well, yeah, you guys got a season under your belt of working that stuff together. You're only getting better at it, I would imagine.
And I mean, we had to limit ourselves this time around. It's like, hey, this is already difficult in so many ways. Let's not make it impossible times 2, right? So we only went with impossible, and we got there. And I mean, it's something that a lot of people have been talking about for a long time, and still are. I mean, you're seeing now Halo coming out as a TV show, and there's more happening. But I mean, it is a huge risk, and you have to be in a position where you have really like intent behind it. So us and Sci-Fi, we're like, let's just do this shit. So because otherwise, I mean, what's been happening before and what everybody was talking about doing, it always just dwindled out and didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, you guys are alive and kicking for certain, and we got some fans in the Twitch chat here. I got a question or two I'm going to relay to you.
Sure.
The first one from a very adamant questioner, Cloud25XD. I got you, buddy. Are there any plans to allow players to go and visit Defiance? Of course, that is where St. Louis is, and you're in the Bay Area, so that would involve a significant amount of travel.
Yeah, no, it's not planned right now, exactly because of the freedom that we're giving each other. it would actually narrow us down and restrict us in what we could do. So that's why we're not doing it.
Well, because Defiance actually exists. That's a TV show set. People see it. They know all those details.
Huge
You guys
set,
would have to
man.
build that very
yeah.
exactly in the game, and
Yeah.
everyone in that show has a character in the way
Yeah.
they act.
So I mean, besides being a huge undertaking, I mean the main reason is simply that we are going to have this separation, but we're going to go into other areas instead, where we actually have more crossover. So
Sort of meet in the middle a little bit. So the middle would be like between Rocky Mountains. All right.
Okay.
So Inflectu is of course curious about characters from the show showing up in the game. Now the game started out with the two main characters in the show, Nolan and Arisa,
yeah.
leaving the Bay Area, and then at the end of one storyline in the game, then that's how they ended up in Defiance, where the show kicked off.
Yeah.
What about other characters we might see coming back into the game from the show? I think is the flow that this user wants to know about.
I mean, this is part of when I do interviews with Defiance, is that it's not just a game. I always have to be very careful because we have a TV show. I can't spoil the plot there. I
don't think anybody wants to either.
Game of Thrones, and I would say like, hey, you know what? If you haven't read the book, they all die still. It's like, but no, it's there is a lot of that going to happen more, especially between the seasons, and we'll see characters coming over to Defiance the game, and I mean the main stars. I mean it's even actually like quite awesome because usually you'd see like, okay, yes, there's a TV show being made. It's made up in Canada. We're down in San Diego. Not much going around. It's the exact opposite. I mean, we're talking so often back and forth, just keeping in sync. We have a huge lore and a huge wiki, which is just the entire background which we share. But also the cast, they're totally into it. Grant Bowler is a player, going on shooting around, and we actually got him the other day to actually play himself in the game. So he was playing himself.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, they're all like, hey, when do I get into the game? It's like, hey, fine by me. Let's do it, right? So yeah, you'll see far more of that.
Well, I think you're getting some folks in the chat interested in trying it out if they haven't already. So Defiance is on PC, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3.
Yes.
Is there a trial available for folks who want to test it out on any of those platforms?
No, not yet. There was a Steam trial the other day, just for PC. But trying out is something that we actually approach. But it's difficult because it's 3 platforms. It's kind of the story of our lives. Is that doing a game and a show wasn't insane enough, so we added like all 3 platforms.
Multi-platform,
Yeah, why stop there?
Why sleep ever?
Yes. Oh God, I'd like to sleep. But that being said, yes, it's natural for us. Online games, they have trials. And the thing is that it's more that we're going through this simply the phase of determining how to do it, when to do it. You'll see some form of trials on all platforms. That's what I expect.
All right, Nathan. And when will Defiance players see the DLC and the new playable race coming to Defiance?
End of July is currently the schedule, but it's a bit of a juggling thing because of the 3 platforms. So it might actually be staggered and come earlier on some platforms.
All right, Nathan, thank you so much for coming by, talking Defiance.
Thank you.
Showing it off. The game's still looking slick, and that show is really entertaining, folks. If you haven't seen it,
it has
check it out.
Cool chicks that do stuff.
And other things. Max Runner Dark Pulse next.